A car comes down a tight street with some guys running alongside. Gets closer as one of its occupants makes an announcement. People seem to be gathering, and Renato's father is buying him a bike in the midst of this. Renato's soon riding around town, bypassing the listening crowd. As he passes by, they all cheer for the announcer and for Mussolini. Renato's enjoying his moment. Malena brushes her hair, pulls on her nylon stockings and her shoes. As Renato cycles over to his friends, they circle Renato's new bike and make some appreciative comments. Malena leaves, and as always, the boys are dumbfounded by her beauty as she passes. They look at her awe and silence. Once she passes, they rush to get on their bikes. The aim is to intercept her presence at another junction. It seems they know her walking route all too well. Meanwhile, Renato's excited. Down there, she passes by again, and they rush to their bikes once more for the final interception. Once there, they look on as she joins the applauding crowd. This is the third and last bus stop, and Renato has had quite an eyeful of Malena, and it seems he likes what he sees. At school, the boys attend their regular classes. One of the boys excuses himself to the toilet, and we see that Renato's distracted. He's dreaming of Malena. Later that night, Renato can't sleep, tossing and turning in bed. The next day, the boys head to the beach to compare genitals and exchange comments. I don't even know what the hell to say to that one. The following day, the students arrive at school, but Renato ditches, riding to the front of Malena's house and scanning her house. He briefly dreams that she has beckoned to him while dressed suggestively. He's this close to her as her naked legs excite him. But sadly for him, it's only a daydream as he gets back to reality. He's then shown haggling with a tailor, taking his measurement. Back at home, Renato's father has discovered all of Renato's extracurricular antics, scolding and spanking his son. The whole family's concerned, as well as some neighbors. Just the typical family issues that pop up when you have an overly horny kid. Renato sneaks out of the house after dark, using the charcoal pressing iron as his lamp. When he gets to Malena's place, he climbs a tree and finds a hole to peep through, which for the record is illegal and creepy, so double whammy there. Malena's there in her nightgown. Renato looks at her and scans the inside of the house, making out a picture containing Malena and what seems to be her husband. So aside from being a total creeper, Renato's also very observant. Cinema recap here. We've got a little challenge that'll take 5 seconds, and it will change your life forever. You ready? All you gotta do is like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and you'll receive 10 free years of good luck. It's as simple as that. The perverted Sherlock Holmes. Later, Renato heads to the barbershop to get a haircut, but soon after, he's right back at Malena's compound again. This time, he spies on her with a telescope as she dries her hair and reads a letter. It's probably from her husband, who's away fighting in the war. Renato pauses in thought. That night, Renato's at her house again, peeping through the hole. This time, he gets lucky. He sees a little bit more of her body as she picks up her husband's picture and dances to some music. Renato later tries to buy a copy of that very same music. He plays the record in his bedroom a little later. He retrieves a booklet of a nude woman and proceeds to, stimulate himself to the music. He dreams Malena is in his room. They draw close to each other, and he removes her clothes. But again, it's only in his head. Dude needs a hobby. The next day, Renato heads to the beach alone, writing a correspondence letter to Malena. He's fallen head over heels in love with her, having ditched school again. We see that Renato has made several failed attempts at expressing his feelings on paper. The waves wash away all the crumpled papers, but his feelings remain. Later, the boys are at it again, chasing and intercepting Malena just to get a good look at her. But Renato has an idea and decides to ditch his friends at bus stop 3 to follow Malena into town. He spots her at what you might call bus stops 4 and 5. But at some point, Renato thinks he's lost her. He sits down on the steps when fate steps in. Malena surprisingly exits from that same building. Being the budding young creep he is, Renato follows her. Soon enough, Renato discovers that he's got a lot of competition from the townsmen, who all stare in admiration as Malena passes. He's jealous and disgusted at the same time, even trying to talk to her, only to lose his nerve at the last minute. Still, he follows her closely until her final destination, a private apartment in town. Malena knocks on the door, and someone inside quietly drops down a key as Renato looks on. Renato watches a movie at the local cinema. He imagined the stars in the film are himself and Malena midway through a couple's fight. After school, the students rush home. Renato tries to fix his bike when he spots Malena, deciding to follow her through town. Some of the townsfolk make comments as she passes through the square. Renato continues to follow because he has no concept of basic human decency. Malena heads for the private apartment. Once she gets inside, Renato climbs a gate to figure out what's happening. To his surprise, Malena's working as a nurse for an older man who, it turns out, is his teacher at school. So she's a good woman. That night, Renato again stimulates himself while music plays and the bed squeaks. He simultaneously thinks of Malena starring alongside him as the leading actor in all his favorite movies. Renato's father screams from the other room about Renato's noises, killing the mood instantly. The next day, all the students are engaged in gym class. Soon enough, Renato finds his way to Malena's house again, but she's not there. Renato attends a rally where a high-ranking military man gives a speech. Renato observes the crowd, especially their comments about what's going on. He leaves the group and heads for the same secluded apartment Malena usually frequents. He looks through the open door and sees her legs. She's lying down and weeping. Renato comforts her, and she hugs him in return. Later, the whole town is at the procession. Malena is the Mother Mary on top of a flotilla, while Renato holds a candle amongst others. As things move, the onlookers make a sign of the cross one by one. Renato has to serve a drink to one man who seems to be giving a negative comment about Malena to his friends as they play some pool. Renato secretly spits in his glass before handing it to him. Some older woman also comments negatively about Malena. Renato urinates in one of their handbags, believing that he's defending Malena, his queen's honor. He also prays to a saint for some luck with her. Back at the town square, Renato gets the whiff of a scent that he traces. It turns out to be Malena's perfume. She's just exited a shop, and the owner comments to his friend. Renato tosses a rock through the shop window and gets away on his bike. Back at Malena's house, Renato steals her underwear, crossing so many lines I don't even know where to start. That night, he oils his squeaking bed for a smoother, thrilling ride. It's a fun time for him, and luckily, his bed doesn't make any noise. The next day, his father happens to discover Malena's underwear on Renato's face as he sleeps. Naturally, he raises the alarm, and soon the rest of the family's there. His mother and father spank him, his mother burning the underwear while his father seals his room window. Renato is grounded for days, refusing to eat and talking to himself. His mother is obviously concerned. The family invites a doctor over. As his close family and friends observe, the doctor declares Renato is healthy. The first thing he does, of course, is head to Malena's house. But when he gets there, many men are already seeking her favors as the most beautiful woman in town, and Renato's overwhelmed. The next day at school, the professor receives a note of disengagement and leaves the class to the boys, who engage in a fight. That night, Renato pays a visit to Malena's house. He discovers a handsome captain is already there. They've just had some dinner, and Renato can see the flowers he brought for her. They say their farewells, and he leaves. Just outside, another man confronts the handsome captain, and they end up exchanging blows and tumbling in the sand. The second man's wife appears with some police officers to separate the fight. All the while, Renato watches from his vantage point in the tree and can only sigh in confusion. Some locals make comments as Renato follows Malena to the private apartment. Turns out the professor has changed the locks, suggesting Malena has been fired. Renato pities her from a distance. She heads back to the government office amid all of her admirers. A scorned wife has filed a case against her to a judge, forcing Malena to endure questioning. She pleads guilty to the charges as the witnessing crowd heaves a sigh. Her lawyer then eloquently makes his case. That night, Renato's peeping again as Malena dances with her lawyer from earlier. They proceed upstairs, where they role play. Renato wants to see it all, rushing to the next window gap he can find. As he looks, the tree branch gives away. Whoops! Renato limps with a broken arm and leg to the saint statue he prayed to earlier. He breaks its arm for disappointing him. Next, he goes to the cinema to console himself, with some help from a notorious woman who stimulates any men sitting beside her. Later, Renato does some reconnaissance with his little telescope. He has the lawyer from earlier in his sights, bringing a present to Malena's house. Renato's heartbroken. At school, he writes a letter and dreams of Malena. The new female instructor confronts him, and he says something romantic while still daydreaming. The whole class laughs at him. On his way out, he topples a head bust. which breaks into two. After school, he spies on Malena and her dealings with the lawyer. Soon he's again following her about town as everyone's talking about her. Malena escapes the attention by going into a side street, and Renato follows her. Malena meets up with a man who offers her a little food and tries to seduce her. Here, we realize that Malena must be broke and disliked by the locals. Except, of course, Renato. Just then, as he tries to take his chance, the siren alarm sounds. Threatening warplanes fly through the sky, and soon everyone rushes towards the bomb shelters. After the devastation, the survivors process the extent of the destruction and pick through the rubble. The professor is found dead. Malena, once his caretaker, assumes the role of a relative. Once the professor's buried, Renato desperately wants to console Malena, but he doesn't get his chance as older men shove him off. That night, Renato watches Malena through the peephole and sees her trimming her hair. While half-dressed, she also cleans herself with water and some raw lemon juice. As Renato watches, a car arrives. He quickly hides and observes, watching as the man takes advantage of Malena. Renato's heartbroken and disappointed as he leaves. The next day in town, Malena walks as everyone talks and sighs. She likes the attention. Her hair's different, red. She sits down and pulls out a cigarette, which a few men offer to light. In his mind, Renato daydreams he's saving her from a burning stake, swooping in and shooting his machine gun. That night, he again stimulates himself noisily while his father tries to catch up on the news downstairs. The next day, Malena is spotted in the company of two Germans and the popular lady from the cinema. Malena's hair is now blonde, and the locals make their comments. Renato can't help but imagine them having a fun time together, which causes him to faint in heartbreak. The doctor examines Renato beside his mother. Actually, on second thought, it's a priest who's just declared him possessed. The priest sprinkles Renato with holy water and prays. His parents have brought him here, and his father is impatient to try his solution. The siren sounds as Renato's father takes him somewhere, a house for a woman of easy virtue. His father's determined to cure him of his obsession with Malena. Amongst all the girls, Renato finds the one he likes, and she guides him upstairs. She undresses him, then undresses. And they start what they came into the room to do. The next day, there's a jubilation in the streets. Americans drive down the streets in convoy. Suddenly, a group of 5 women decides to go inside, and Renato suspects something terrible is about to happen. When the women show up again, they drag Malena out into the street and attempt to lynch her, cutting down her hair. They beat her black and blue as a crowd watches helplessly. Renato's devastated, watching as they disgrace her in front of their men. She screams in anguish and she walks away in pain. At the train station, there's a crowd of people trying to leave town. Malena's among them, and Renato notices her despite her scarf covering. While resting on his bike, he observes as she and everyone else climbs aboard the train and embarks on a new life. Back at his beach spot, alone and unhappy, Renato tosses the music he purchased earlier. Back in town, a carriage truck pulls up and out steps Malena's husband, Nino Scordia. As he walks through the town on his way home to Malena, the residents talk behind his back. He's lost one arm and generally asks about his wife. Nino reports to the embassy and asks there too, Renato following him the whole time. When Nino asks a group of 3 men something, they make fun of him and knock him to the ground. Renato's on hand to help him up. Nino's house has been transformed into a public shelter, and back there he's finding it hard to go to sleep. Just then a note drops by his side. He peruses its messenger but can't catch up. Renato escapes with his bicycle before Nino reads the note. In it, Renato tells Nino everything, perhaps even the whereabouts of Malena. Nino boards a night train to go and seek Malena out as Renato looks on. A year later, the town square is full of people. Renato walks with a girl in his arm, presumably one he charmed while stalking her. Suddenly, everyone's attention turns to a couple. Surprise! It's Nino and Malena passing by. Few people say anything, and even Renato himself is conflicted, despite him maybe being the one who saved their relationship. Malena's shopping at the open market now. At first, the atmosphere is hostile, as people make comments as she passes, but then she looks inwards, greeting even the ringleader of the group of women who beat her up. They reciprocate in turn, and she is now accepted. Water under the bridge, you think. Renato follows Malena on his bicycle when she mistakenly drops her things on the way home. He rushes to help, saying something positive to her. She acknowledges him as she walks away. He rides away too, finally at peace. Renato muses that while he's known and loved many women, the only woman he can never truly forget is Malena, which is really romantic. Until you remember all the stalking, stealing, and masturbating. The movie Malena was released in 2000 and was produced by Miramax and Medusa production venture. It stars Monica Bellucci and Giuseppe Solfaro. What crazy antics did you get up to when you were younger? Tell me with the hashtag Cinema Recap in the comments.